we are now recording. So that's great. Throughout the session, please use the chat box to put questions in so that when Peter's finished his presentation, we can go through questions and get responses to them and you don't forget them. So please make use of that. I'm now going to hand over the hosting to Peter, who then will be able to get his presentation going. Hold on 1 second. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now? Great. Okay, well, thank you all for tuning in. I noticed there's 2 or 3 people who probably know the Greenways as well as I do, if not better. So if I say anything inaccurate or controversial, please don't throw anything at your screens. Just tell me afterwards. This talk is about York Greenways, and at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you should see our website. Unfortunately, it's not working very well. It's there, but it's pretty well incomprehensible. So if you want to find out about us later, you'll see at the end, I'll give you the link to our Facebook, which has most of the same information on it. York Greenways is an independent local partner in the National Cycle Network, which with me involved at that time, a long time ago, now runs to 15,000 miles. And within that, York is an important junction. We've got routes going north-south and east-west. The north-south one will take you from Scotland to the south of England. East-west incorporates what's known as the Way of the Roses, which takes you from Morecambe to Bridlington, and it comes through York.
Peter, is your screen sharing supposed to be on? It's not showing yet.
Sorry.
I'd hate you to do the whole thing. And
yeah, it would be annoying. How do I do that? Did it a minute
share
ago.
screen. Yep.
I can't see anything.
Share screen down at the bottom of the Zoom window.
It's not. Where's the Zoom window?
For the benefit of those present, this all worked absolutely perfectly about 5 minutes ago.
I can't see a Zoom meeting. Stuff on top of it.
Oh.
Talk amongst yourselves for a minute, please. Phil, can you tell me what I'm doing?
Yeah, the window which all of this is happening in, at the bottom of that, if you move your mouse pointer down to the bottom, there should be buttons appear at the bottom, one of which will be share screen in the middle.
I don't see that screen.
What's your picture appearing in and everything else then, and everybody else's cameras?
I've got a picture of you.
Yep, there should be a window which all that's in.
Let's see. There we go. That's better. Right.
It hasn't appeared yet.
Well, I've got it.
Okay.
Progress. What am I doing? Share screen.
Yep, share screen. Then share that window. That's looking better. Yeah.
Can everyone see that now?
Yep, you just want to now turn it to slideshow.
Okay, I can do that. Right, where were we? National Cycle Network. Yeah, of the cycle network, approximately apparently 16,000 miles now 11,000 miles are actually on roads and 5,000 miles are traffic free. Now, within that 5,000 miles, there are a limited number of what we call greenways. And we're lucky to have 2 of those in York. On this one, you'll see the greenways on the top right. It's the Foss Island Greenway, which runs from back of Morrison's out to Osbaldwick, and it's on the old railway line there. And the Solar System Greenway in the bottom left, which is on the old East Coast main line. But I've also included a couple of other areas which are of green interest. So Hearns Gutter is up on the road out towards, on the track out to Benningborough, and it's a wet woodland. There's a new route out to Rufford, which goes over the council rubbish heap. And Kimberlow Hill, I have for a couple of years been trying to get Sustrans to include that on the map as an alternative route, because when you're up there alongside the new East Campus, you get great views south to all the power stations, north to, you can see the White Horse, and a great view back onto town with the Minster. Yeah, the other one is Balloon Tree Wood, which actually is in York, although it's right next to Stamford Bridge, and is probably more interest to residents of Stamford Bridge, but it happens to be in the top right-hand corner of York, and it's a plantation, and the cycle path goes through it on the tarmac path, but we've also created a loop through the woodland for walkers. Right. So what is a greenway? There's 2 definitions. One at the bottom, one with Sustrans. I'll just read the one which was done by Countryside Agency now, which is now Natural England. And it's a network of largely off-road routes connected to facilities. Sorry, you just blocking it, well, my vision of it. I'll just move you down. A network of largely off-road routes connecting people to facilities and open spaces in and around towns, cities, and the countryside. They are for use by people of all abilities on foot, bike, or horseback for commuting, play, or leisure. And Sustrans says more or less the same thing. So part of the partnership, Sustrans relies on rangers. And I've also mentioned Transpennine Trail because the Solar System Greenway is also part of the Transpennine Trail, which goes from just above Liverpool on the coast across to the east coast here. And it's mainly through West Yorkshire, but there is a spur which goes from Selby up to York, and that's part of the Solar System Greenway. I'm talking about Sustrans because I'm trying to put the York Greenways in context of how we came to be. So those of us who run the committee at the moment and who set it up were, and in fact still are, Sustrans Rangers, and I'm also a Transpennine Ranger because I look after the solar system path. The core responsibilities are to do with maintaining what we call the infrastructure, which is essentially the path itself and the verge on 1 meter on either side. So it's mainly to do with keeping it safe and rideable. So it involves cutting back any overhanging vegetation, making sure that the path stays full width because the grass tends to encroach on it. We have to maintain the signage, keeping access points clear, litter picking, chatting to passers-by, which is perhaps the most fun and essential thing. And if we identify something that's beyond our capacity to deal with, we refer it up to Sustrans to do something about. So that's the core responsibilities. But on top of that, Sustrans does other things. It's constantly continuing to try and develop the National Cycle Network further. And it has a target, anyway, much more, I forget what it was. It audits the quality of the infrastructure, and it's just done a review, which actually has involved de-designating stretches, mainly on roads which are considered too dangerous or unsuitable. Fortunately, none of these are in York, and most of our routes are actually off-road. They lobby the government and local authorities, and as a result of that, they also sometimes get quite large sums of money to help in their work. They also, and we're getting towards where we come into it, is encouraging people to use the network, because there's no real point in having a wonderful network if no one uses it. So there are various ways that we try and encourage people to use it, and they had an extensive schools program. They do quite a lot of urban design work, and I've just seen a contribution they've made to the consultation on the Northern Ring Road, which is quite interesting. They recruit rangers like ourselves and give us support. They do artwork. If you travel on the network a lot, you'll see plenty of really interesting sculptures and artwork en route, including on ours. And a big project is Greenways. So you might be wondering, in that case, since they do so much, what is the point of having York Greenways as an independent group? And the main reasons are that we're local, we're agile, and we're informal. So Sustrans is a large, I hesitate to use the word bureaucracy, but it's a large organization with a national remit. So obviously, for them, York is only part of what they have to consider. We instead exist to try and fill gaps that inevitably follow from this. So we have a local focus. We don't have to spread our resources or our priorities around. We're just interested in making York and its surroundings a more interesting and enjoyable space. Also, we get local knowledge. We hear about things from other groups and residents that perhaps they wouldn't hear about. The nearest office is Leeds, another one in Newcastle, and of course the head office in Bristol. So we are locally based and all live locally. Sustrans tends to be perceived as a very well-funded organization, and it does get millions of pounds, but these tend to be for new work. People who hold the purse strings tend to like to fund activities which require opening. They like to cut ribbons and get their pictures in the local papers. Maintenance and the more boring things tend not to get covered. And we actually can go to local, smaller funding bodies, including local committees and so on, and get funding from them, smaller amounts, but very, very useful and essential in sort of filling the gaps. When I say agile, we've got a management structure which is very flat. At the moment, it's 2 people, and it does enable us to respond very quickly as problems or opportunities arise. One of the most important things is the continuity. We're here, been here a long time, and we hope to be here a bit longer. And Sustrans projects are funded in a way that means they're time limited. You get funding for a project, then it comes to an end. So what we can do is we work with them while the project's going on, and we can keep the momentum going when the project ends and the staff move on or are made redundant. And finally, we're informal. So some people are interested in getting involved and helping out, but don't necessarily want to sign up as a Sustrans ranger. It's a bit like applying for a job. You have an application form and you get interviewed and so on. For us, all you have to do is to email me and say that you'd be happy to go on our mailing list. And then as far as we're concerned, you're a member and you will hear about what we're doing. And if you want to get involved in something, then you're very welcome to pop along, and we'd love to see you. Just to explain how we came to be. So in 1995, we were all individual rangers. We were all given our stretch to look after. And in fact, in York, there is so much in the way of off-road routes that there would have been several rangers working. And as is always the case, it's the interface between different areas where the problems arise. So you might have 6 ranges in York, and something will get missed, dropped between them. So we independently formed ourselves into groups, divided the city up, and it gives us more people to come out and do the work, because we're so much off-road routes in York. There's a lot more to do than there would be, say, on a public road. Now, we came to the same conclusion as Sustrans, that you needed to encourage people to actually use the routes after we'd got them nice. So we wanted to promote other activities which encourage people to use it and enjoy it. And the first one that occurred to us was biodiversity. So in 2011, we got a grant from the lottery to employ Yorkshire Wildlife Trust to help us set up as an organisation. And they did that. That was a year-long project. And subsequently, we got interested in local history, and that has, over the last 2 or 3 years, enabled us to run the project called the Railway to Greenway, which looks at the history of how the route came to be the way it is today. So the people involved, there's the committee, obviously, rangers. Anyone who's a ranger, a Sustrans ranger, is invited to go on our mailing list and is welcome at any activity, but there's only half a dozen of those. So our members, as I said, is anyone who is on our mailing list is invited along. But even that, if I put out a message saying I'm going to do something on a certain day, I might get a couple of other people coming along to help, but it's not a huge number. Some of the tasks we have to do are very labor intensive, particularly mowing the verges and harvesting the grass and dealing with the Himalayan balsam. And so for that, we rely on other organizations coming along with groups to help us. So we liaise with other groups who are looking for tasks or who are promoting related initiatives. So Good Gym, we give them a wish list of things that we'd like to have done, and they come along and work with us on a specific event. Brunswick Organic Nursery we've worked with for many years. St. Nick's, they have various projects that they go on, and we are very happy to have them come and put their time in on land that we look after. York Cares is based at the university, and it's a system whereby companies, commercial companies that want their staff to have the opportunity to do work with charities, maybe 2 or 3 days a year, they get paid and time off. They come and we give them, give them a wish list. And if any company looks and thinks that's an interesting thing, we'd like to do that, then they come along. The picture is the only group we've had during lockdown. They're from Tesco's. And the reason they were allowed to do it is because they were a bubble at work. So they were allowed to come along and work together. I had to distance myself from them because I wasn't part of that bubble. I'm going to mainly talk from here on about the solar system Greenway because that's the one that I look after. But I should also mention Foss Island Greenway, and the gentleman in the stand is our treasurer, Ken, and he is manning a stall at St. Nick's. And Foss Islands runs alongside St. Nick's Nature Resource Centre. It starts, as I said, I think at Morrison's, goes on to Oswaldwick, ending up in the new Derwentthorpe estate. It follows the line of the old Derwent Valley Light Railway and leads out to the Merton Farming Museum. It's connected to what was the old Foss Islands branch line, which circles around past Roundtree's factory and joins, or used to join up with the Scarborough line. And most of this is now an orbital cycle route around the city. We do have a relatively new group looking after it, residents who are now taking over, but St. Nick's used to manage it for us as a partner. It is due to be part of a new Sustrans enhancement initiative, which has got some funding, and I don't really know much about that, but hopefully that'll make it even more interesting and pleasant place in the future. No, there's another technical bit, so I hope this works.
York is a great place to be, with historic streets, ancient buildings, not to mention a wide choice of pubs and coffee shops. Enough to keep you entertained all day.
Well, that's all great, but what if I like a bit of fresh air and exercise?
Didn't you hear? You can be out in the countryside along traffic-free routes in no time at all. Sustrans National Cycle Network goes right through the centre of York.
Really?
My favourite route is the Solar System Greenway.
What on earth is that?
Ah, well, not quite on Earth. It's the University of York's scale model of our solar system. Each planet is to scale and the correct distance from the sun. Earth is just 100 metres away, and if you're feeling like a proper space cadet, you can go to Pluto, which is a whopping 10 kilometres away.
That doesn't sound like it's in outer space.
It's not. You just take the Riverside Walk, south from King's Staithe, over the Millennium Bridge, across the Knaresmire Racecourse to Bishopthorpe.
So how did this cycle path come about?
Ah, well, for over 100 years, this was the main railway line from London to Edinburgh. The Mallard would pound along here over 100 miles an hour.
A little bit faster than me, then.
Yeah, just a bit. In those days, the River Ouse was a busy commercial route to the sea. Trains had to cross the swing bridge at Neyburn. It's still there, and you can stop and watch the river traffic from the cycle path.
10 kilometres is a bit far for me. Is there anywhere to stop?
A few minutes from the bridge, the old Neyburn station is now a guest house and cafe. While back in Bishopthorpe, Brunswick Organic Nursery has a cafe at the weekends. You can even get a plant or two to take home.
But what if I want a pint?
There are lots of pubs in the local villages, with great food and good beer, only a short detour from the path.
That all sounds great. I'm going to head down there now.
Race you!
You're on.
Right.
You've just killed the screen sharing completely there, so.
Do that then.
Need to get that back up.
On. Can anybody see that apart from me?
Nope.
Hold on a second.
Peter's going to practice solidly before next year's York Environment Week and will be brilliant
I
then.
can only console myself with having listened to lots of webinars over the even the professionals seem to manage to make stupid mistakes. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Good. So we'll carry on. So yeah, I'm going to concentrate on the Solar System Greenway. This is a photograph of the sun the first time it was erected. A lovely golden color. Over the years, as you saw from that video, it went rather grey, and just this last autumn we've managed to repaint it. With regard to the video, we made it a few years back, and so Neyburn Station is no longer a guest house, and at the moment Brunswick Organic isn't offering teas, I'm afraid. Right, so the Solar System Greenway is the one that runs from the Askenbar Park and Ride, and it goes down to Rickle. That's about 10 kilometers. It used to be the East Coast main line from London to Edinburgh, but it was closed in 1983 when the Selby Superpit coalfield was created. They were worried about subsidence. The route was bought by Sustrans for £1, and it was opened a couple of years later as a traffic-free route. As part of the setting up, the team from the University of York designed, built and installed a scale model of the solar system along the path. And in fact, that team is still around, and they helped us repaint the sun a couple of months ago. The path is a SINC, which is a site of interest for nature conservation, which means it's a green, well, it's because it's a green corridor, and it allows the migration of species along it. And as it's a north-south route, that's particularly important with climate change threatening. Therefore, our prime aim in terms of it being a greenway is to make sure that continuity is maintained, and that's where the problem of Himalayan balsam comes in. Because that makes the break. And obviously, it's beyond us to eliminate Himalayan balsam. We're still waiting for a chemical or biological solution to that. But our objective is simply to keep it off the greenway itself, which we have been reasonably successful. There's a new outbreak to the north of Bishopthorpe, but we'll have a crack at that in the spring. In 2013, one of these groups from Network Rail came along, and as you can see from the photograph here, they were helping us to repaint the bridge, which is it's a continuous job, a bit like the Forth Road Bridge. But while they came, there was 12 of them, and in discussions we found out that only one of them, an older member of the team, had even knew that it had ever been a railway line, and this is a group from Network Rail. So when you're working on the path, people are constantly stopping and saying, oh, I used to work on the railway here, or I used to work down the coal mine. And so we thought there's a definite problem here. So we decided that we ought to start looking at a local history project, and we call it Railway to Greenway. And on this, which is the sort of second page on it, you'll see that we divided up into 5 different themes, and I'll run through those using as illustration these interpretation boards. And part of the project was to have these made, and there are 8 of them along the path at different locations. The guy on the left here is a volunteer, and he built the interpretation boards, and they're beautiful oak, very well made, and incredibly cheap, because he didn't charge us anything, just paid for the materials. So that the money that we saved on that, we were able to put into our schools program, which was another thing that we did as part of the project. That one is at the Escrick sidings, which if you're looking for somewhere to go for a picnic in the summer, it's kind of halfway along, and it's a nice spot to go down. It used to be the sidings for Escrick Grange, the manor house there, which is now a school, and they had their own station built because he was on the board of the railway company, and got a letter from George Lehman saying, if you or your wife need to go to London, we'll stop the trains for you, but this doesn't apply to your guests or to your servants. So it's quite good to be on the board of a company, it seems. But this is the first one. This board is what used to be called Challoner's Wyn, which is the entrance from the Park and Ride. And Challoner's Wyn is where this diversion, the 1860s diversion, joined the old route, which used to have to go around through West Yorkshire and then come in on what is now the Leeds line. If you look at the picture in the center there with it's not mallard, but it's a similar type of locomotive. Behind it, the trees are still there, and behind the smoke is the BP petrol station. It's just come through underneath the Tadcaster Road. So that one has a lot of material on the railways. the next theme was the Selby coalfield, which is what caused the closure of the railway line. And we worked a lot with the National Coal Mining Museum for England, which is the one near Wakefield. And one of the things I really, all of this is on our website, which I should have mentioned, but the website includes recordings that we made with retired coal miners who'd worked. I went down to the museum, and a lot of them work as guides at the museum. They take you down, and I interviewed those who had worked at Selby. But there's some really brilliant stories, including, for most of them came from families who were from the Barnsley area. So they were born and brought up and started work in villages with their own pits in a very close community. And then eventually, when they were closed down, they were moved, or given the opportunity to move to the Selby coalfield, which they earned a lot more money there. It was the most productive mine in Europe and the biggest deep mine in Europe. But it was just culturally an amazing change, a huge piece of machinery and tunnels that were as big as a railway tunnel, whereas in their first job, they were probably crawling along a 3-foot high seam with a pickaxe. So interesting change, interesting to hear about their careers, and all of these are on audio tapes on the website. We also have a really fascinating interview with the farmer. Those of you who walk over the bridge, on your right, there's a farm, and the farmer there, his son, gave us a great interview about the impact of how he used to use the railways to get the cattle to market in York and Selby, but also what happened during the war when they wanted to protect the bridge. And there was a gun on it, but they weren't allowed to fire at any enemy planes unless they were actually going to attack the bridge, which they never did. So they were never fired in anger, even though York was bombed, because the reason being they didn't want to attract attention to it. But one squaddy was sitting at his post one day and pretending to shoot at planes to pass the time. And the guy on the earlier shift had forgotten to take the ammunition out, and he'd actually fired up into the air at friendly fire at passing bombers from Elvington. So he got court-martialed for that. The third theme is the solar system Greenway, the way that it was closed, the railway line was closed down, Sustrans bought it, and so on. This particular one is actually at the, if you know the Rickle end, there's near Pluto, there's a kind of bus station, a bus stop, and this interpretation board is in there. So it covers the whole of what the project's about, including the transition to the Greenway. And at the bottom right, you'll see one of the signposts that we have at each planet. There's a signpost like that, and on the finger posts, it shows the distance to the next planet and to the sun, both in inches, miles, and yards, or whatever scale you're interested in. As I say, we first got involved as our interest in the ecology, and so we have a natural history theme, and this interpretation board is just south of Naban Bridge, which is the area where we had the largest infestation of Himalayan balsam, which you can see, it's the pink flower there. Sometimes when we're ripping it up, we get told off, why are you taking away this lovely flower, which the bees love, but unfortunately it just kills off everything else. It outcompetes everything, and so we have to keep it under control. Just below that, you'll see the tansy beetle. We don't actually have any on the path, but if you go down to the riverbank from the bridge, there's lots of tansy plants and tansy beetles, which if you're not from York, you'll need to know that it's an iconic insect that we're very proud of. The River Ouse, this wasn't originally a theme, but we were looking into it as a from the point of view of what happened before the railway came, how were goods moved up and down, and of course that was along the river. But in the end, we found there was so much interesting material that we gave it its own theme, and this was through the Fishergate, Fulford and Heslington Local History Group did this for us, and we've had it printed up, and it's now on the actual bridge itself. So if you're looking northwards up the river, you can actually see this as you look at the river. So where do we go from here? We've got quite an ambitious project, a lot of it very tentative, but I'll just sort of give you an idea of what we have lined up. The Railway to Greenway project was a one-year project. It's now in its fourth year. Fortunately, the Heritage Lottery Fund has been very understanding, because some of the elements of the project are dependent on other partners. And one of the things that we need to finish is gateway sculptures at either end, one at the Park and Ride and one at Rickle. And that's tied into the contract, which if you live in Bishopthorpe, you'll be aware of the football pitches being built either side of the path near the Park and Ride. And we've agreed with the contractor that he will install these for us. So if you see the signal looking thing, that is a model of the sculpture. Well, the actual sculptures are made and in one of our volunteers' garages, and he'd really like to get rid of it. But that will go up hopefully this year once the council's contract starts. If you do go along the path, you'll be aware of the Trust Hut, which is the green building and on the left. I was up there today. We are trying to get it back up and running. The lady who ran it has had some difficulties in keeping it open for a while. But I've got a new colleague coming in, and we're hoping to have it operating Sundays and perhaps Wednesdays, or at least one day during the week. And the other thing that we're doing, I say Adventure Playground, we are trying to encourage people, using Pester Power to get kids to encourage their parents to get on their bikes and come out or walk up there. So we're putting in various bits of play equipment. We had it in the past, but it was all a bit fragile and suffered from minor vandalism and weather. So we're putting in more robust stuff. So hopefully by spring, that'll be a fun place to drive the parents to. The schools program, that operated during the project in the villages, the 3 villages alongside the path. So that's Rickle, Escrick, not Escrick, that's too far. Rickle, Bishopthorpe and Naburn. And that ran through the project. It came to an end, but we have offered it, and it's been
around that way
by Naburn or by Weldrake. It's offered to the local parish councils, and if they're prepared to fund it, we still operate it, and we're doing one at the moment. And hopefully when COVID is sorted, we'll be able to pursue that again. Fundraising obviously continues. We get stuff on funding opportunities, but we don't pursue them at the moment. We've got enough money left over from the project to see us for the foreseeable. And I'm sure we feel there's other charities that need the money at the moment more than we do. So we're not pursuing that for the moment. Cycling Without Age, that's a project run by Bike Bells, which is a kind of rickshaw. And we take people out from retirement homes to get some fresh air and see a few things. And we got involved because we take them up on the solar system Greenway, which is right next to the chocolate works. So again, that's stopped because of the COVID, but hopefully that will start again, maybe in the summer. Really enjoy doing that, and I'm hoping that they'll give me a place when I get a little bit older. Underground art, that one in the middle. I was walking along the path and I met this guy, bird watcher, and turned out he was an ex-miner. And because they're not allowed to take cameras down because of the fear of explosion, he used to take his sketchbook down, and he has done dozens of these pictures. And I just think they require much more of an airing than they get. So I've put some on the website, and I'll be talking to him, trying to encourage him to let us do some exhibitions, perhaps either locally or at the Coal Mining Museum. I'm sending them to the Coal Mining Museum, and they'll probably use them. Forest Plans is a new initiative that Sustrans is involved in, and that would include the treed areas that we have. So the solar system Greenway is a linear forest, in case you didn't know. That's how we try and get funding for it. Obviously, there's balloon tree wood, and up at the picture at the bottom right, that's Hearn's Gutter, the little fourth road bridge. Sorry, fourth railway bridge. And behind it, the trees there, that's actually a wet woodland, which is a specific category. So we're hoping to have a management plan for all those that we can work with. A really interesting thing that we've got, again, started with a volunteer, a young man from Luxembourg who was over with his girlfriend who was at the university, and he got involved and turned out he was a GIS map expert. And he is in the process of designing this app for us, which will go on the website and also on the signboards. And what it does, there will be on the map, you can see in the top right there will be little icons, and you'll be able to see where you can get something to eat, where the access points are, places of interest alongside, and also a lot of circular walks. So you might go for a certain distance up our path, but rather than just turn around and come back, you can go around in a loop on the public footpaths. So that's what's going to keep us busy for the next few years. If you want to know more, we have these links. The first one, as I say, is been corrupted at the moment, and we'll have to sort that out. But if you want to find out a bit more, our Facebook page has got quite a lot of information on it. The Railway to Greenway project has its own dedicated website. And if you want to contact me, you'd better not send it to hello@yorkgreenways.org because it won't go anywhere. It should be York Greenways, obviously, yorkgreenways.org. But Phil will mention a way that you can contact me if you want to get involved or you want to know more. So that's it. Thank you for listening.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. If you'd like to on-screen share.
Here we go again. Your pictures are in.
If you go right up to the top of your screen, you should have a little thing that says screen sharing and end.
Stop the share.
Yes, and all you need to do now is make me host again. And then we're sorted and we're ready for some questions, which there are.
How do I make you? Oh, make I see it. No, there we go. It's been a wonderful growth experience for me.
It's going to look good on your CV, Peter. Just think of it like that.
Never do it again.
Your next job interview, this is going to wow them.
There you go.
Brilliant stuff. Excellent. Great stuff. So yes, if you've got the chat box available to you there, Peter, without challenging you too much further, there are some questions in there. You want to have a run through them as starter, and then we'll pick up any other questions that people have got come up since then.
How do I answer these? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, so what sort of work do you do with local schools? And does this include encouraging active travel? Active travel is done by Sustrans and by the local authority. We do get involved by helping to marshal rides. I mean, this is all in the past, before lockdown, but presumably we'll start doing that again. We do encourage schools to come out. We've got good links with Naburn and Bishopthorpe schools in particular, and they use the cycle path quite a lot. The schools program that we run, we employed an ecologist during the project, and we've retained a relationship with him so that what he offers is still available, and we make bids on his behalf to local parish councils or ward committees to see if they'd want us, and that involves taking them out onto the path. So it's a mixture of ecological curriculum and outdoor activity. So some of them have forest schools and things like that. Yes, it would be great to get more tree planting along the route. Some people would disagree, particularly those who want to cycle faster and hit a tree root damage. I took out a couple of those myself, probably illegally, when those Tesco people were helping clear up, and it's quite a task. It's like concrete. There is work on dealing with that, but so there is a slight reluctance to put in too many trees. The trees were planted, the trees along the solar system Greenway were planted with the idea of having this as a linear woodland, and so we're obviously going to keep that, but it does need to be perhaps kept back from the path so the roots don't impinge too much. There is also always has been a culture divide within Sustrans between the infrastructure people and the green people, and I'm much more on the latter, but we have lots of arguments about what our priorities should be. But we'll be looking at this forest plan thing, which obviously will include planting where that's appropriate. We did plant, or Sustrans Greenways did plant some orchard along the route between the Ring Road and Bishopthorpe. They confusingly called it Community Orchard, which is at the same time that Bishopthorpe were creating their own community orchard. And that's one of the reasons why we need to be involved, because we actually realized what was happening, but it was too late. They'd printed all the signs by then. But yes, where it's appropriate, we would like to, and we would love to participate in planting trees along the route.
There's a question further up from Claire Kennard about, are there cycling maps of all the greenways from York?
I've started too far down. I shall perhaps go back to the top now. Are numbers of users of the greenways, other cycle routes recorded at all? We did a project. During the project, we had people from the university, from the sociology department, did a survey for a while, and they did a report which was very favorable. And it's interesting, I went to a talk that they put on at the university, and it was about the change in emphasis in ecological circles from looking at places as individual spots like a park or a nature reserve or something, and looking much more at it as a network. So it was as much to do with how you travel between these spots, and also how other species travel between these spots, than just looking at them in isolation. And while I was there, I thought, great, this is exactly what we do. And so I spoke to the professor there, and he organized this, well, we funded, and they organized this survey and the report that they've done, which I could make available. But that was just during that project. We were hoping that there are monitors at various spots run by the council and by Sustrans and by Transpennine Trail, so we can incorporate that. But it's a bit of an unattractive job for our volunteers to do, to sit by the path in weather like this and count numbers. I can tell you at the moment it's very busy. Are there cycling maps of the greenways from York? Once our new app is available, that will be very informative. At the moment, if you go to the Sustrans website and look at the National Cycle Network, it's based on the Ordnance Survey, and you can zoom in and see it in quite some detail. There are a number of trip maps that have been done and which are available from the council. I had some up at Naburn Station for people to pick up. I think we're running a bit low, and because we don't tend to see people the way we used to, I need to get some more stocks of those. But the council, the active travel people at the council, have a lot of maps of circular routes or routes to all different parts of York and its surroundings. So I can't tell you offhand. I could, if you leave a message, I can let you know who you need to contact at the council to get these maps. They're quite keen to give them away, but because we're not doing events anymore, we're sitting on them. Well, part of the project was to put distribution boxes along the path, and if you look at them, there's one at the Sun, there's one at Bishopthorpe by Brunswick Organic, and there's one at Naburn Station, and there's lots of leaflets for the solar system on there. And when I get some more leaflets, I can use those as well. Loving the graffiti. I am going to reinstate Ben M has got funny feet. Ben M is probably middle-aged by now. If he wasn't then, I don't know who he was. No one knows who he was. And
Already moved on, hasn't he?
I don't normally like tagging, but we love that. And it's got a big local following. So one of my little jobs is to reinstate that, and that's why we keep that photograph. We have an issue with graffiti. We've always encouraged it. Sustrans has always encouraged it in terms of good quality artwork. And if you go under the A64, there is some very good stuff there. Every now and again, Community Payback will take it upon itself to come along and paint over it. They seem to have desisted recently. I got permission that there was a local I think she was the mayor, had a zero tolerance policy for a bit. And we persuaded the council, once she left her post, we persuaded the council to lay off. But there's always someone down the chain who hasn't got that message, and then suddenly has got a number of ex-convicts they don't know what to do with. So they think, oh, give them a paintbrush and go and paint over some graffiti. And they don't seem to feel that they can judge what's good and what's bad. So we hope that the good stuff will remain. What we find, if you go to the Naburn Bridge, Bike Bells did some painting on the old concrete pillboxes. And you'll find with minor exceptions, it gets respected. The other taggers don't go and make a mess of it. And it's to me, it's a lot nicer than concrete. So that's our policy, and that's Sustrans' policy as well. It's just Highways Agency don't like it either. And I asked Highways Agency why they didn't like it, and they said, well, we can't see if there's any cracks. And then they come along and put an extra coat of grey wash over the top. And then we put some more, someone, not me, someone put some more artwork on it, and then you can put another coat of grey paint over the top of it. So I don't know how thick it is now, but you certainly can't see any cracks through it. Right, sorry, carry on.
I think you've picked them all up.
Good.
I just wanted to ask, given there's an interesting bit of wisdom down there, Ruth Genoway, about the Victorian cunning ploy of how you divert tree roots off in the direction you want them. Ruth, could you enlighten us further on that one? I want to know.
Yeah, so this was one I picked up from some tree guys down in London, and
You fellas.
yeah, there's huge the tree lovers of London who give talks and stuff, and there's some absolutely massive plane trees, of course, all around London, and the roads are fine. And it's like, how do they manage that? And apparently underneath they just built a horizontal culvert alongside the road, just like we've got verges, but going down quite a long way. And of course the trees then meet up with the next tree along as well. So they're actually more healthy. It's more like a forest because their tree roots intermingle. and they don't go under the houses because, of course, they're right next to some very big posh houses in a lot of cases, and they don't go under the road. They just go along.
So it's basically creating a kind of easy route for them to go down, which they preferred going underneath it.
A tree pit, which is a big long canal kind of tree pit for the trees, which is
I will pass that
awesome.
on.
But I mean, I've done the same with just taking old tiles and just shoving a load of old roof tiles where I don't want the tree to go this direction. You can just shove them in, and generally the tree roots, they might go through eventually, but they'll generally just go, oh no, it's too hard. Let's go that way.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's really, really good stuff.
The council has got money to do tree root work and is negotiating a contract with Sustrans to do that. Unfortunately, the worst bit, which is alongside the A64, is Highways Agency. And although they have several £1 million to work on the road, they don't seem to be able to rustle up enough money to sort that out. I did one on the bit that goes to the park and ride, and it was great because the tarmac comes up really easily. I tried to do it on that section, and it's like concrete. So I did a couple, and then ran out of energy. But I'll pass that tip on because maybe that will make it more effective in the future.
This could become known as the Yorkshire way or whatever of sorting things out. Courtesy of Ruth. Excellent stuff. Many thanks, Peter, for this evening's session. Really interesting. Certainly learned some new stuff. Just one on the subject of graffiti. There's a fabulous 99% Invisible podcast about graffiti and the removal thereof, which I shall pass information on to people. And I will pass information on to people. Peter said earlier on that there'll be a way of contacting him if you're interested. There'll be an email that comes out to all of you probably about 2 or 3 days' time, just as a follow-up to tonight's session. I'll ask Peter for any links that he wants to make sure get distributed, so I'll make sure they go out to you. This event, as I said, has been recorded, will go up onto the York Environment Week YouTube channel. I shall remind myself to switch it off by clicking on stop recording now.